That man put his hands on me, I would have immediately swung on him. Immediately.
It started off with, I didn't want to address it. But since the video came out, I feel the need to address it.
My issue is with LeBron James. And I just want to say for the record, LeBron James is full of it. And in this particular instance, as it pertains to his son, he is a liar.
Have you ever seen a simple sports debate escalate into a personal battle so intense that even casual viewers can't look away? It's exactly what happened when Stephen A. Smith, a man whose commentary has dominated sports television for decades, hinted he might throw hands if LeBron James ever put a finger on him. The whole sports world paused in disbelief. Was it hype for ratings, or did something finally push him over the edge? As fans, we've seen harsh critiques, arguments about soft modern play, and endless talk about LeBron's place in NBA history. But personal threats? That's new ground for Stephen A. And it thrust this longtime media obsession into uncharted territory. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. Questions started swirling. Why pick a fight with the most talked about athlete on the planet? Why put family into the crosshairs? And perhaps most importantly, what line got crossed that made LeBron decide enough was enough? To understand this heated dispute, you have to look beyond box scores, talk show rants, and sports headlines. You have to dive into a story shaped by two colossal personalities, years of media coverage, and a culture that constantly demands new controversies. Keep watching because, as dramatic as Stephen A.'s threats sounded, they're just the latest chapter in a long, winding narrative. And some parts of it will genuinely leave you questioning how far sports commentary should go. From the outside, it looked like just another day on television. Stephen A. Smith seated at the debate desk, going off on an impassioned monologue about LeBron James. We're all used to that by now. After all, Stephen A. has built a career on fiery takes. Then, in a moment that sparked the entire sports community's attention, he let slip a remark about how he'd react if LeBron ever laid hands on him. For a man who prides himself on telling it like it is, it seemed off the charts extreme. It gets even crazier. Nobody expected the phrase "swing on him" to come tumbling out of his mouth. Stephen A. has dished out some audacious commentary before, accusing players of softness, challenging their mental fortitude, or calling out their shortcomings in dramatic fashion. But physically confronting an NBA superstar? That's rare territory, even for him. The set went still for a moment, followed by the usual on-air scramble to maintain composure. It was a brief moment of shock, quickly turned into trending topics across social media. Some fans dismissed it as showmanship. After all, who actually believes Stephen A. Smith would square up against LeBron? A 6'8", 250-pound athlete famously known for outmuscling even the biggest players on the court? But others weren't so sure. This time, the drama felt real. The question became, why go there at all? Was this just a slip of the tongue? Or had something personal triggered a side of Stephen A. we'd never truly seen? The sports world thrives on over-the-top remarks. We've all heard outlandish claims before, yet this moment felt different. A collision between stardom and commentary that crossed beyond standard sports chatter. And it sparked a puzzle. What was Stephen A. really after? More views, more headlines? Or did the tension with LeBron build to a point where words weren't enough anymore? To understand how things escalated, you have to look at the bigger picture of Stephen A. Smith's coverage of LeBron James. For nearly 2 decades, LeBron has been the central pillar of NBA talk. In fact, he's been so dominant, on and off the court, that entire segments, TV shows, and digital platforms have thrived by mentioning his name. Stephen A., recognized as ESPN's highest-paid commentator, has capitalized on this more than most. And here's where things take an unexpected turn. Ever since LeBron's high school days, sports networks have made him the face of everything from the Chosen One hype to GOAT debates. Stephen A. was there from the start, dissecting each pivotal moment in LeBron's career. The Cleveland Miracle Run, the infamous Decision TV special, Miami's Big Three era, the championship returns to Cleveland, and the subsequent Lakers renaissance. With every step, Stephen A. offered biting critiques and sky-high praise, sometimes both at once, consistently pivoting back to LeBron no matter what else was happening in the NBA. Critics say Stephen A. has an unhealthy fixation. But from a business standpoint, it's no mystery. Whenever LeBron's name is mentioned, ratings tend to go up, social media erupts, and debate shows get fresh content for days on end. Viewers either tune in to agree with Stephen A. or watch in disbelief, waiting for him to cross another line. In a realm where attention is currency, Who better to focus on than a man widely seen as the face of basketball for an entire generation? But beneath the surface, there's a deeper pattern. LeBron's stoicism in the face of relentless scrutiny has rarely wavered. Even during the toughest criticisms, like his high-profile losses or shifts in free agency, he typically responded on the court, not with outraged interviews. So why would Stephen A. escalate to a personal level now, after all these years of verbal jabs? Something must have changed. LeBron James reached his breaking point when discussions moved from critiquing his performance to targeting his loved ones, particularly his son, Bronny. To be clear, LeBron has never had an issue with being critiqued as an athlete. He stood as a lightning rod for comparison to legends like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, weathering heated debates about his shooting, passing, leadership, or clutchness. But once the commentary took aim at the personal domain, his upbringing, his parenting, or the future of Bronny, LeBron decided it was time to speak out. Wait until you hear the next part. Many people don't realize just how protective LeBron is of his inner circle. Yes, he's a public figure, but he's also a father. Watching his son's name get dragged into talk show fodder crossed a moral boundary most people understand. Sports loyalty aside. That's where it all escalated. Stephen A. Smith's remarks weren't just directed at LeBron, but also sprinkled hints of criticism toward Bronny, especially about hype, potential, and nepotism. LeBron's response was immediate and pointed. He respects the media's role in critiquing players' performances, but once the attacks veer into personal territory, it's on him to protect his household. Suddenly, fans saw a different side of LeBron, less diplomatic, more direct. He openly called out commentators for targeting families, stating that if they had issues with his game, they should address him alone. What's jarring is that many commentators often say families are off limits, an unspoken rule of respect. Yet, in the chase for exclusives and headlines, boundaries blur. The constant coverage of Bronny's high school performances, combined with a stream of unsolicited opinions about his mental state, future prospects, and even his father's influence, served as the final straw. But even with LeBron drawing a clear line, Stephen A. didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down with threats of physical retaliation, stirring an already blazing pot. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a future upload. Now back to the video. Around the same time, LeBron gave a rare, unfiltered interview with Pat McAfee, which unleashed a whole new wave of discussions. Traditionally, LeBron has stuck to carefully measured media appearances, but on McAfee's show, he opened up about everything. The evolution of basketball, how modern stars would fare in the game's gritty past, and his frustrations with the old heads who constantly criticize the current era. He also emphasized how vital it was to him that the media stick to sports critiques and leave personal matters out of the spotlight. And you'll never guess what happens next. In just a matter of days, clips from the interview spread across social platforms, fueling fresh segments on debate shows nationwide. Fans devoured LeBron's candid comments, especially his belief that transcendent athletes like Giannis Antetokounmpo or himself could dominate in the rugged 1970s or 1980s. Sure, he used some hyperbole, joking that Giannis might rack up 250 points in a single game back then, but the heart of his message was clear. Great players adapt no matter the era. Stephen A. pounced on the 250 points remark, framing it as disrespectful to the older generations of players. He spun it as a slight at the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, and other legends who had to endure a more physical league. Yet again, LeBron found himself at the center of a firestorm, with Stephen A. hinting that talk show hosts and former players deserved more respect. But was this really about the purity of basketball history, or just an opportunity to fan the flames for ratings? With each new statement LeBron made, Stephen A. seemed to gain fresh ammunition. Even as some critics called him out for fueling needless drama, ESPN and other networks continued to push the sensational angles. After all, watchers couldn't look away. The tension between past and present players has simmered for years. Generations of NBA legends, some who grew up braving the bad boy Pistons, the Jordan rules, or the brutally physical style of the 80s, often claim modern stars wouldn't last under old-school conditions. They point to rule changes, stricter foul calls, and an explosion of offensive strategies as signs of a softer league. But listen to this. LeBron's counter-argument is straightforward. Skill levels have skyrocketed, and the game itself has evolved. He believes if you dropped a physically gifted and versatile star like Giannis into the 1970s, he'd be unstoppable because of his blend of athleticism and modern training methods. The notion isn't to insult past greats, but to highlight how the sport's talent pool has broadened. Stephen A. took offense to that stance, calling it disrespectful to the Warriors of older eras. Then he upped the ante by suggesting that even players like Kendrick Perkins would have thrived in the rough-and-tumble days of the 1980s, insinuating that guys like LeBron might be less prepared for the violent environment back then. The hypocrisy struck a nerve with fans who remember Perkins' limitations on offense, and the reality that LeBron, at 6 feet 8 inches and built like a freight train, has thrived against every brand of defense imaginable. Still, the debate rages on because nothing draws fans like pitting one generation against another. Stephen A. is far from alone in using these narratives, but the difference here is that he's turned it into a personal clash with LeBron, as if defending the honor of past NBA legends requires him to spark a fight in the present. Anyone who's watched ESPN over the last 2 decades has seen how the network structures its programming around a handful of star players, from morning until night. The day's coverage frequently circles back to the biggest names: LeBron, the Warriors, marquee rookies, or the occasional scandal. It's a strategy that works because it feeds viewers consistent doses of drama. Stephen A. Smith has mastered this approach, possessing an uncanny ability to spin any morsel of information into a debate that can fill entire segments. What makes this LeBron versus Stephen A. situation unique is how brazenly personal it's become. On the one hand, Stephen A. claims he's tired of talking about LeBron and will stop once the superstar retires. On the other hand, everyone can see he's built a significant portion of his platform on talking about LeBron, for better or worse. ESPN producers and executives know that a single incendiary take about LeBron can spark viral content, boost ratings, and lead to a flurry of online engagement. So even if Stephen A. insists he's ready to move on, the network itself has no intention of letting him do so. Here's where the story really heats up. LeBron, for his part, recognizes how this cycle works. In his Pat McAfee interview, he flat out predicted that Stephen A. would dissect every word he said, turning it into days of content. And he was right. The conversation about old school versus new school, about personal boundaries, and about what if Stephen A. really tried to swing on LeBron, all became new storylines to sustain the 24-hour sports news machine. Yet, it's crucial to note that Stephen A. also benefits from the attention. Every new controversy can elevate his stature as the outspoken face of sports debate. Even negative press keeps his name trending, and that's the currency of modern media. But what happens to those boundaries between personal life and professional critique once they've been blatantly crossed? So how did we reach a place where sports commentary morphs into personal grudges for mass consumption? It's no secret that controversy sells. The simplest formula in modern media is conflict plus big names equals clicks, views, and engagement. Add in social media's ability to amplify every quote, tweet, or video clip, and you get a non-stop feedback loop. That loop can become toxic quickly, especially if it drags friends, families, and private lives into the spotlight. In some cases, fans love the drama, tuning in to see who will clap back next. But for the individuals involved, it can feel like a never-ending barrage of intrusions. We've seen other athletes, from Kevin Durant to Kyrie Irving, react harshly when personal issues overshadow their performance. LeBron's situation is magnified by his worldwide stature and the fact that he's never faced personal controversies on the same scale as some other sports figures. He rarely stokes the flames on purpose. So when Stephen A. landed that blow, referencing physical confrontation, it signaled a shift toward an invasive, tabloid-like approach. Perhaps the real concern is how these tensions shape younger fans' perceptions of the sport. If up-and-coming athletes learn that personal attacks are standard media practice, they might become more guarded, less open, and more distrusting of journalists. In that sense, Stephen A.'s theatrics could set a precedent, one that says it's acceptable to push past normal boundaries for a big rating. What ultimately emerges from this saga is a poignant question. Where do we draw the line between healthy sports criticism and personal attacks that go too far? Stephen A. Smith built a career on flamboyant opinions and has every right to critique any player's performance. LeBron James, for his part, has faced scrutiny most of his life and generally taken it in stride. But once family got involved, the dynamic shifted irreversibly. It's hard to imagine Stephen A. truly giving up on LeBron coverage once the King decides to hang up his sneakers. Whether he retires next year or keeps playing well into his 40s, LeBron's legacy will remain a talking point for decades. That means the debate shows, podcasts, and video segments will keep swirling around him. The real question is whether we'll witness more personal digs at his family, or if commentators will remember there's a line that shouldn't be crossed. For now, we're left with a compelling drama that goes beyond basketball. one that reminds us how personalities drive the sports world. Stephen A. might have been indulging in sensationalism for ratings, or he might have felt genuinely provoked by LeBron's stance on older players. Either way, their feud has everyone glued to their screens asking, is this about to escalate even further? Or will cooler heads finally prevail? When you strip away the noise, it becomes clear that controversial, headline-grabbing statements are the engine of modern sports media. But as fans, we have the power to decide what lines we expect our favorite commentators and players to respect. LeBron's quest to protect his family is an important stand, and Stephen A.'s reaction exposes how quickly a professional critique can become a personal war. Where it all goes next is anyone's guess. Yet one thing remains certain. As long as LeBron James remains in the spotlight, whether on the court or long into retirement, someone somewhere will be ready to pick a fight with words. Or at least pretend they would, if it makes for good TV. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss our next upload.